We focused on three issues that we thought are very important for all of us to deal with. One of those is how do we achieve growth? Basically, that requires us to focus on how to maximize on investments and how to deal with some of the areas of confidence that have been a challenge between us. The second one has been about how do we make sure that we increase jobs. This goes to deal with not only the mining as the sector, but also looking further onto the areas of value addition and beneficiation. We believe as well that South Africa has got, is one of the leaders, global leaders in some of the deposits that we have in the platinum group metals, in the iron ore, manganese, etc. Of course, you know all of that. But the point being that we need a conversation together of how we can maximize on all of these so that we can increase the jobs that can be created and so grow the industry as well as impact on some of the sectors such as industrial manufacturing, which has got a huge scope in South Africa as well. And then the third one was to deal with the issue of transformation. And the real issue here, which I think has been worrying everyone, is when we talk about transformation, talk about radical economic transformation, there's always been a fear about what this radical transformation is all about. Effectively, what we are really looking at here is a question of how do we increase the ownership, the participation by the black industrialists, black entrepreneurs who have over the years been left out of the industry because of the past policies, and how do we ensure that we can increase professional, technical, and other managerial expertise from amongst those who have been also marginalized. And how do we ensure that all of those continue to participate in some of the services that are being rendered within the mines, particularly in the whole area of procurement of the large mines. And all of this has to be looked at in the context of how far have we come with the black economic empowerment strategies, what needs to be improved and what needs to be dealt with as we go into the future. So in the process, therefore, we have found that the mining chamber indicated to us the tension that exists between the mining chamber and the ministry. And this is an issue that we are concerned about, and we will do everything we can to try and resolve that matter. As the ANC, as a party, we had offered ourselves to be able to be available to help to facilitate in resolving a number of these issues. The issue of the mining chamber that we are dealing with this time around, in terms of the principles that it carries, the issues of focusing on increasing ownership, focusing on the issue of support, black entrepreneurs, the issues of all the other support mechanisms, financial support and so on, the issues of increasing the numbers of professionals from the black communities, the issue of having to embrace the neighboring communities and schemes that would involve the workers in various forms, as it were. All of those issues for us are issues that are principles that we would support. What we were concerned with was that there seems to have been a problem in the discussion, in the negotiation. The Chamber of Mines came to us to say that some of the issues raised in the charter were issues that they had not negotiated, and we still appealed for the ministry to actually sit down with the mining charter to negotiate these particular issues. Of course, now the issues are in court. I think even with the best outcomes out of court, the most likely outcome would be that the whole negotiation has to be reopened. And this is what we would have really supported, because we believe that if it is the ministry, the labor, the government working together, it is better to get a formula or a solution or a decision that we can live with together, rather than subjecting everything to the courts when we could in fact negotiate and find a way to take ourselves forward. So part of what we're recommending was that the ministry should then discuss and negotiate these issues, because we would expect that while the principles may be agreed, but the various levels at which the parties involved in the discussion could agree, we would want to see a system that allows us to negotiate to that kind of level. There are obviously a number of other issues that we have had to deal with over the years, and in particular, we know that part of what affected the mining industry has been the commodity prices all over the world. But internally, one of the issues that had been raised was the issue of the instability within the labor movement. That again, I think a bit of progress has been made on that side, because I'm sure mining unions who might be represented here would also attest to the fact that for the past 3 or so years, we have not seen as much of protracted work stoppages, as well as a lot of violence in the mines. Very unfortunate what we went through a few years ago, Marikana and some of the other violent confrontations. But I think NEDLAC has been able to get to a point where there's an understanding that there should be a way of intervening early to ensure that we can get labor harmony, whilst the labor employer-employee negotiations are something that are within the Constitution. But what I think is important for us is to reduce the prolonged or protracted work stoppages, was that way we get the economy badly affected. In fact, I think 2014, some decline in the growth was actually attributed to the six months long strike. So this is an issue that I believe we are kind of getting over, because NEDLAC has discussed those formats of interventions, and I hope we can keep to that and move on, because it's not just about mining, but it's about really stabilizing the entire economy, as it were. Linked to that, of course, were issues around the minimum wage, which was discussed openly at the NEDLAC process, which we believe also that discussion was beginning to take us to a point where we are able to show a degree of confidence amongst one another to be able to move on. With the kind of economic situation we are in, we will need a lot of engagement, wherein government, private sector should be able to sit and listen to each other and try and find solutions together. And these issues, for me, relate to the rest of the other aspects of our economy. And so when we talk about the challenges that were brought about to the point where we came with the issue of the radical economic transformation, it was really looking back in the 20 years of our democracy, where we were saying that we have achieved quite a lot in terms of the constitutional dispensation that we have got, and the service delivery issues. Quite a lot of work had been done there. But the fact that there was increasing inequality, increasing unemployment, and the fact that we were going through increasing poverty, it was also an indication that the structure on which our economy is based is too narrow, too concentrated, and we need to be able to try and find a way to open up and deconcentrate the structure of the economy. Particularly, also, you have seen a lot more activity around the Competition Commission, looking at the anti-competitive behavior to try and open up more space for competitiveness within the economy. So those are issues that I think we have to face as we move into the future amongst ourselves. We need a joint program to uplift the economy of this country. We need to be able to sit down and say, when we talk about mining, for example, what are the possible value chain, action steps that you need to take? You have on the one side a whole angle on the manufacturing, where there's a lot of equipment and vehicles, that are getting manufactured. So the Automotive Manufacturing Association says 1.4 million units is where we're focusing. And then there's also the policy on localization. We now need to use that as one outlet and say, can we use that for value addition on the industrial manufacturing, where a lot of the components for the automobile manufacturing could be manufactured in the country. If we were to use primary commodities we have to stimulate that industry, what should we expect from government? What policies, what incentives, what targets, what numbers of jobs, and what level of growth can we achieve? So once we begin to think together and start integrating various sectors, we might be able to achieve a lot more than what we're doing now. So the National Development Plan still remains one document that can help us to move in that particular direction. It's got good targets of reducing unemployment to 12% and then 6%, doubling the GDP growth, and also looking at increasing our trade into the continent. And these are the areas of expansion that we need. Now, what we really need is a way of being able to operate and work together as South Africans, as the leaders in business and government, so that we can achieve that kind of growth. So from where we sit, we want to say to you that yes, there are these tensions with the ministry, with the government, but hang on there. Let's work until we can find the solution.